Okay, Nick and Andy, Ruben Amorim is in Manchester. He's been spotted at Carrington training ground. He's met all of the hierarchy at Manchester United. And now it's go time for him and what he needs to fix at Old Trafford. Nick, when we look at his inbox, his in tray, he's going to have a lot of points there, isn't he, to be honest, with what he's inherited. But I guess his main focus between now and January, got some tough games coming up. It's probably this 3-4-3 formation, which he's intimated he's really going to stick with. That's his philosophy from a footballing side of things. He believes in that. But what else do you think he really has to focus on for first steps at Manchester United as he settles in?
I mean, beyond the formation, it's just it's the culture that he wants to create. It's making sure that the people behind him and above him understand that yeah, look, just because we've had a couple weeks of decent results and there's a buzz and a shiny vibe coming off me, nothing's fixed. And yes. I think it actually is kind of nice that they got some good results under Van Nistelrooy and can still look up at the table and be like, wow, even with that, we're not in a great position. So, yeah, look, the 3-4-3 is a nice thing to discuss. All these things are nice things to discuss, but nothing changes if this isn't a new day and this isn't the man in charge. So, let's sense some energy, right?
Yeah, I mean, Andy, he does have that energy and he does seem like the man in charge, right? Very comfortable. He's 39 years of age. He's been chased by so many of the biggest teams around Europe for a while now. We've been hearing this name linked with, Tottenham, West Ham, Liverpool, all kinds of huge jobs, Man City even. But he's ended up at Man United. He's inherited a talented but probably imbalanced squad, I think it's fair to say, given the transfer policy over the years. I mean, which players do you think will actually be key and crucial for Amorim that he will start to build around? Because we saw this, right? Even when Klopp came in at Liverpool, Arteta at Arsenal, and even we can remember way back to when Pep came in at Man City, there are certain core, probably 4 or 5 players when a new manager comes in, he builds his team around them and say, these guys fit my philosophy. And you know what? I probably need another 4 or 5 other guys to come in and improve us and get to where we need to be. But in terms of the players who kind of really fit in, who do you think stands out?
Yeah, well, there's a lot of work to do there because it's a lot of different players signed for and by a lot of different managers and a lot of different executives with a lot of different ideas in mind going forward. And we never get to the idea part when it's Manchester United. It always stalls out before we get to see what it looks like when they put it into practice. And so, I think you just hope that the new owners and the new hierarchy, as you say, Joe, are going to be patient and give him time and understand that this is a big rebuilding project. It's not just we could sign a couple players in the right spots and then we can be back to title contenders. It's not that. There's a lot of issues, and Nick was right in pointing out kind of the culture at the club. That is the first thing. But as far as players go, I'm looking at players that were signed just this summer. Emmanuel Ugarte, I'm not sure how he fits into a 3-4-3 because he's strictly a defensive midfielder. He's a destroying type player, and you need 2 central midfielders that are all action, going to be getting forward, going to support the attack, going to cover the back line. The best that I can recall us seeing 3-4-3 in the Premier League was at Chelsea with Conte and just the way he dominated games and affected every single part of the game. There's not that type of player at Manchester United. And so, obviously, if you can find an N'Golo Kante level player, you want to bring him in. I think Bruno Fernandes will find a nice lease on life, whether it's going to be a little bit out wide or playing underneath as a bit of a false 9. There's a lot of flexibility, I think, with him. And so I think Amorim is the right type of manager to be a little bit flexible in that situation. But again, there's so much that needs to be fixed at United that it's not happening in January. It's not happening next summer. It's a longer term project.
Yeah, honestly, Andy, though, this is the beautiful thing about this game because I actually thought Ugarte would be perfect for the way that Amorim wants to play. And he played for him at Sporting Lisbon, understands him. And then Bruno Fernandes is one of the players I was thinking he's great. He has been great in recent weeks, but I'm not sure where he actually fits in because, Lisbon like to have a target man. Højlund is that. Like, is he going to play out wide as almost like a wing back? I don't think so. But
I think it's the level where it's going to be happening at. You get, and all due respect to the Portuguese league, it's not the speed, it's not the intensity, it's not the physicality that we see in the Premier League. And I just look at an Ugarte and think, Okay, he could get passed by most attackers in the league. I could see a midfield with him in there as part of a two getting overrun in the Premier League because of how quick the game is and how much it's based on transitions. I guess that was more my point with that one.
No, definitely. And I think two players, Nick, that I think really will fit in is Lissandro Martinez, and Mazraoui's been excellent, and he's flexible, could play wing back, can play in one of maybe the three central defensive roles, even in midfield maybe, potentially. So having those kind of flexible players, comfortable on the ball, aggressive, step in high, those two in particular seem to me that they're going to stick out. And I guess I was going to ask you, Nick, which players are kind of going to be on the outside looking in when you look at Rashford and Garnacho? Can either of those play wing back? I don't think so. Can they play in the slightly more central number 10 roles under a Højlund? I don't really think so either. So it looks like those wingers are kind of on the outside looking in to me. What's your take on the current squad situation?
So I think it's a great time to be a wing back, because the way that I think you're both right on Ugarte, and with Kobe Manu there or Casemiro or whoever is in there in front of that back three, you could see some weird Chris Wilder stuff where there's a center back marauding forward. But more importantly, it's important to be solid out wide, and you need that threat. So Mazraoui, Delo, I think, has an opportunity to find out if he can get back to his best. But that's why I think that Bruno Fernandes will work. And I think they've had a Bruno Fernandes problem for quite some time, because he freelances and the team has not been good enough as Barcelona was with Messi or Man City was with De Bruyne at their best, where they can just say, hey, go do it. Go be better in attack. And so this is a freedom that Bruno Fernandes can have and can be effective. And I would expect him, maybe inadvertently, because of all the minutes he got as a false nine, to be comfortable in that position. You're right. It might be a new day for Amad Diallo. It might be a new day. Garnacho, maybe he can show us. But the reason Garnacho, to me, won't work is because he works if he gets to be free of defensive concern. And you can't have both Bruno and him doing that. I do wonder if Marcus Rashford is a big body. He's a fast guy. Could he have life out wide? I don't know. But yeah, that piece, the next to Bruno piece, is very, very interesting. So out, Anthony's in trouble. A couple center backs are in trouble. I think everyone else will get a chance. And the one guy out of nowhere, keep an eye on Lindelof. I just got this feeling that he will be the sort of player. Like if he were to have gone to Sporting Lisbon to play for Amorim, you would have been like, oh, I think that's a fit.
Yeah, I agree. I was thinking of that. And I think Luke Shaw, someone we haven't mentioned, if he can stay fit, is perfect in a wing back. I think the wing back role suits him perfectly, the way he plays, if he can stay fit. But you're right. The more we talked about Bruno, I do think he has a key part to play. And this is one of the two underneath forwards, underneath the number 9. But I guess that takes us on to like sort of recruitment, Andy, and what do they need to focus on? We talk about this a lot with Man United. They spent big in the summer again. Very mixed results in terms of the players they bought once again. Very mixed ideas with the recruitment strategy. Now it has to all be clear and lined up, right? And we know they go for slightly younger players, but what kind of players do they actually need to sign and prioritize, if not in January, then next summer for Amorim's first preseason? Because we saw Victor Gyökeres, what he did to Man City, that number 9, big body. United tried to sign Harry Kane for a long time. They've clearly been missing that presence, that focal point in attack. And I mean, Gyökeres is the obvious choice, but someone of that kind of mold of player seems like that's where they're really, really missing. And we know they've struggled to score goals this season.
Yeah, I'm going to go back to patience just a little bit here. I think Højlund can be that player. And watching Sporting play against City last week, the things that stuck out about what Gyökeres did was obviously the physicality and the pace running in behind. They look to play balls in behind. He has that part of his game already, Højlund. Like we've seen that, and we've seen it be pretty productive. Now, where Gyökeres really separates himself is his hold-up play and his passing ability. And that's something that Højlund just doesn't have at this point. And if he can add that to his game, working under Amorim in the right system with Bruno and somebody around him, joining into that attack that can be goal dangerous as well, because that's kind of the issue for United. other than Bruno, nobody is a threat to score a goal on a consistent basis unless they do something absolutely brilliant once every 12 games, or there's a cross into the box, typically a set piece. And so if you can have multiple ways to generate scoring chances, I like their chances a bit more. A little bit more patience for you. Maybe a type of player that could fit alongside Bruno playing underneath is already there, and a player that they spent a lot of money on and that seems to be a problem and that we're not totally sure what to do with him. Joe, do you know?
Xerxes.
Well, there's him. I think there's another option as well. I think Mason Mount could be useful in that kind of role because you're carrying a lot of water in the midfield alongside Bruno. That is part of the job. And if you're going to play underneath, they're going to need somebody that can put up a little resistance there deep in the opponent's midfield. And I think maybe it's off the bench, maybe it's against a City type team, an Arsenal, Liverpool, and it's a little bit more of a defensive setup. But there are interesting pieces in the squad is all I'm saying. And we've kind of looked past them and written them off under previous managers, but under this one, maybe you get a little bit of a new lease on life.
Yeah, I think a central striker and another centre-back for me are the two key areas where a centre-back that suits Amorim's style a bit better, a bit more aggressive on the front foot, and it's quick and has recovery speed. We talked about it a lot in the Premier League this season. To get you out of jail, if you're going to push high and try and be front foot like Amorim likes to be with his teams, then you need to have that bailout and get out of jail free card, and they need a centre-back. Nick, what is actually achievable for Amorim this season? Because, all right, it's been bad, historically bad for Man United, but when we look at the table, they're only 4 points off Chelsea in third, which is pretty ridiculous. We know how congested it is, but they do have some big games coming up, right? And I think they have Arsenal and Man City before Christmas in the Premier League. So some big tests early on for Amorim to see if he can have an instant impact with his new squad.
Yeah, I don't know what the odds are on this. Okay. Don't know what the odds are, but the top four is achievable. There is talent there. And if they finish their chances, which we've seen in the past few weeks, look, they haven't played they played one decent team, right? But they finished their chances. And we talked about it a bit. They were manufacturing chances because Fernandes was in that role. I think they're a better defensive team than any of us have really given them credit for, because the focus has been on these 1-1 games or West Ham scoring in stoppage time. But I do think they're a better team defensively than we give them credit for. So, yeah, look, can they make a splash in January? Can they find that guy to play next to Bruno? And if they do, and if health is there, given the way that this table looks right now, it's there for them to be back in Europe again. And I think Amorim would probably take that right now. Yeah,
definitely. Well, we're going to find out. Head over to Pro Soccer Talk on NBCSports.com as Ruben Amorim gets settled in at Manchester United. He's got all the stuff over his desk. He's probably got loads of bits of paper, iPads, you name it, trying to figure out all the stats, all the new players he has to manage and coach, and working out the hierarchy, recruitment. He's going to be a busy guy, the Portuguese coach. What we do know is he's very talented. He has one of the biggest jobs, if not the biggest, in world football. Let's see what he does with it. Nick, Andy, and I will keep you updated in the coming weeks and months, as all eyes will be on Amorim at Manchester United.
Hi there, I'm Rebecca Lowe, studio host of NBC's coverage of the Premier League. Don't forget to hit subscribe to watch more videos all season long. And if you want even more Premier League content, from original series to live matches, head over to Peacock.